Okay, good evening. I'd like to call this December 17th meeting of the Lee County Board of Commissioners to order. I'd like to welcome everybody here. It's hard to believe we're looking at Christmas being next week, but I appreciate everybody here. At this time, I'd like to call on Commissioner Dodson for invocation and the pledge.
Let's have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, are there any additional agenda items? Yeah. Okay, you choose that one.
Madam Chair, I'd like to add an item to the consent agenda where it concerns the contract with Kimball Commissary Service.
And if you'll look, I think most of you have, all of you should have that in front of you. It's just essentially just approving the commissary service at the jail so that we don't have any interruption in service. And typically that is put on consent. Is there a motion?
I like,
Moved. Is there questions?
on the new business, well, you want to vote on this one or you want the other change?
He made the motion to put it on the consent agenda.
I agree. And I have one for the consent agenda
Oh, okay.
as well.
Okay.
You want to do his? or
No, go ahead.
Go ahead and add. I'd like to move from new business to request for approval of the Lee County drone policy.
Okay. Move item A under new business to G under consent agenda. No, wait, that would be H.
Right.
G would be Kimball Commissary. Is there any discussion?
I believe, Madam Chair, there's someone who wishes to publicly discuss this in public comments,
Which one?
the drone policy.
Okay. Well, I mean, we can just keep it under new business. That's pleasure of the board. Okay, well, let's take two separate votes then. Let's have a vote on the motion for the Kimball Commissary contract to go under consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, all right, we'll do that. Okay, the request for the approval of the Lee County drone policy to be moved to consent. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay,
Well, if there's going to be a public comment on the drone policy, and we'll have Shane here to answer any questions, I suggest we keep it on the new business.
okay.
I agree.
Okay, all those in favor of moving it to consent, say aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, all right, we'll just leave it under A, new business. All right, any other additional agenda items? Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. And then approval of the amended consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right. All right, public comments, Mr. Roberts. And you have 3 minutes, and our attorney will keep time.
Please state your name and address.
Yes. thank
Dale
you.
Roberts, 201 South Plank Road. First, I'd like to congratulate Ariana. She's ours, so we're very proud of you and look forward to seeing great things from you. Firstly, I'd like to say I'm not necessarily against the drone policy. I understand there's actually been some extensive research, so I may be very behind on this. I just found out about it, and I've just got personal concerns that I'd like to make sure the commissioners have taken into account when they consider doing a drone policy. As technology advances, we have resources that on the surface can be used for better good of society. However, just because we have the ability to do something doesn't necessarily mean we should do something. The commissioners would like to take a moment of pause before they make a decision on the allocation of funds to establish a Lee County UAV asset to the law enforcement toolkit. There's many things to consider. One, most importantly, the freedoms and the liberty of the citizens of Lee County. The Supreme Court has already ruled that there's no reasonable expectation of a Fourth Amendment protection from UAV resources. This means that no warrant is necessarily required for law enforcement to utilize these sources. This is a very chilling reality. One of the major safeguards against government abuse of power is the Fourth Amendment. However, now there seems to be a way to circumvent those powers, and it's called a UAV. Before we implement a UAV program, I ask the commissioners to think long and hard on provisions that limit the use of these systems to a very narrow scope to prevent the future abuse of power that usually always comes. The initial desire to use these systems for finding kidnapped victims, runaways, or observing the fleeing suspect seems to be simple enough. However, as time advances, there will inevitably be the desire to utilize these systems in an ever-expanding capacity. What limits will be put on the use of these systems to ensure the privacy of the citizens of Lee County? There's a number of attachments that can be placed on UAVs: thermal, infrared, enhanced audio listening devices, and even weapons. What is to protect the citizens from law enforcement overreach in our county? What liabilities is the county going to assume for damages caused by UAVs? Scared livestock that get injured or cause damage because one of these UAVs fly over their field? UAV crashes into somebody's home or crashes into a vehicle? Is the county going to reimburse these people, or is that just an, oh well, that happens? What is to prevent a UAV pilot from spying on people? If there's no Fourth Amendment protections, they can do whatever they want. What is to prevent UAV pilots from listening in on people's homes? A warrant is not always required. I'm not saying there aren't realistic applications for these systems. I have seen them in action and what they can do, but that was in a war, not on American soil, and we're supposed to have freedom and liberty here. Does Lee County really have a need for these systems? Is it expenditure that's going to reduce crime for our county? Or will it reduce the trust of the citizens in their law enforcement? Do we really need to take another step towards a possible Orwellian society when the government can spy on its citizens at will, without any restrictions? Very simple.
Tom.
Those who give up sensual liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty or safety. Benjamin Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Okay, all right, no other public comments. We'll go into old business. And that begins on page 21 of your agenda with Mr. Payne. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. You have in your agenda a request to consider a contract with Withers Ravenel for Phase 1 implementation of the plan.
Okay. Kind of looked over this a lot. Do you want to make any additional comments, or Mr. Crumpton?
Well, this is to get, really, it's to get going on the construction drawings so we can get these packages out to bid at this point.
Try to establish a timeline.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Any questions or comments? All right. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You'll be busy the first of the year.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, item B, consider adopting a resolution declaring a public health nuisance in response to the opioid litigation. Ms. Parrish.
Thank you. If you recall, the September 17th meeting of the regular Board of Commissioners, at that time, after hearing the presentations from the RFI that was submitted for the opioid litigation, this board decided to enter into and engage the McHugh Fuller law firm. Mr. Ben Atwater is associated with that lawsuit. He's out of Chatham County and is here present in case anyone has any questions for him today. Since then, the legal staff has been able to get a fee arrangement worked out that's between the county and the consortium of law firms for the opioid litigation. It's very similar to what was submitted in the RFI with some just additional information that the chair will sign today. Afterwards, we were contacted by the attorneys that we have engaged, and they have asked us to pass this resolution declaring the opioid crisis a public nuisance. It's my understanding, having conversations with those attorneys, is that all the counties that they have engaged and represented in North Carolina are asked to adopt a similar resolution. At your seats, you'll see an updated list of how many counties that consortium of attorneys has. I believe it's 60 counties, and I can't remember off, I don't have it in front of me, a handful of cities in North Carolina. What we included also in your agenda packages was some information. It was in your, I believe, your August agenda packages as well. Just some county-specific information, some different things that the health department has been doing over the years since I think 2013, trying to address the crisis. Some information from EMS in terms of overdose patients and how many were transported to the ER. Some information from DSS. The sheriff's office has been able to provide information in terms of how many overdoses overdose calls that they have reported for this year up to, I guess, today or something, 61 this year. And since 2010, it's been a total of 418. The city has also provided some information in terms of they had 16 times that they administered Narcan from 2017 and 83 opioid charges within the past 2 years. So we just wanted to provide some information to the board so you can see some different ways that the opioid crisis has affected our counties, or our county. And then, if you so see, based on the recommendation of the attorneys, we're asking that you also adopt the resolution.
Okay. Any questions or discussion, concerns for Ms. Parrish or?
Well, Madam Chair, I'd like to address this regarding our attempt to join an opioid lawsuit against pharmaceutical companies and distributors. First, I need to make this clear that three members of my own family are medical professionals. Our oldest son is a state-certified and practicing paramedic, instructor, as well as a lieutenant in a local fire department. One of our daughter-in-laws is a highly trained emergency room nurse, and the other daughter-in-law is a medical lab technician. Our youngest daughter-in-law's brother has been in and out of jail for criminal activity since the age of 13, involving his use and abuse of illegal drugs. As such, our youngest son's family are the legal guardians responsible for raising her brother's 3-year-old son, as his father is not fit. Our family is fully aware of the devastating effects of the opioid crisis. The illegal opioid epidemic does not have its roots in legal pain medications. According to Harvard and Johns Hopkins researchers, 0.6% of patients prescribed opioids after surgery misuse them. 80% of overdose patients ending up in emergency rooms are not pain patients. They are drug abusers. Punishing the pharmaceutical companies or their distributors will not impact the legal opioid abuse. The Journal of the American Medical Association Internal Medicine noted that emergency room patients treated for opioid overdoses are typically younger than typical pain patients. Unfortunately, heroin is now tainted with the deadly synthetic opioid called fentanyl. Fentanyl is cheaper to produce than heroin. Fentanyl is mass-produced in places like China and smuggled through the U.S. mail, FedEx, UPS, and across our porous borders. No lawsuit directed against our pharmaceutical industry will stop this flood of fentanyl. Are we going to sue China, the #1 producer of the deadly synthetic opioid drug, fentanyl, flooding into the United States? Are we going to sue the country of Afghanistan as the #1 producer of heroin, or the country of Iran, who gladly profits from funneling heroin to the United States? Are we going to sue the manufacturers of Narcan? As this emergency medical treatment reverses the deadly effects of opioid overdoses, it has artificially increased opioid overdose cases. On Friday morning, there was a segment on NPR's Friday News program regarding Pennsylvania's distribution of free naloxone. In that, the reporter interviewed a heroin addict who had been revived not once, not twice, but 7 times. In my opinion, that is 6 times too many. Again, should we join a lawsuit against the manufacturers of Narcan-like products for contributing to repeat overdoses? Are we going to sue the medical schools throughout the United States for failing to properly train doctors on pain management and preventing drug addiction? Are we going to sue the American Medical Association for doctors who actually prescribe pain medications? Are we going to sue the Federal Drug Enforcement Agency for failing to monitor questionable opioid deliveries to drugstores? Are we going to sue the drugstores in Lee County that actually filled the doctor's prescriptions for pain medications? Are we going to sue the Mexican government for being a major conduit that smuggles heroin and fentanyl into the United States? Litigation and settlements, in many cases frivolous lawsuits, actually increase the cost of goods and services for all Americans. In some cases, litigation costs put the companies out of business. Those costs are passed on to the consumer and result in higher prices for the product. For the 9 million Americans whose pain management depend on legally prescribed opioids, they're going to pay an artificially higher price for their pain medications. In the meantime, the trial lawyers will profit handsomely. Will any business or company want to invest in Lee County if they learn that we will participate in a future lawsuit against them? Pfizer Pharmaceuticals comes to mind. Does Pfizer or any of their subsidiaries produce pain medications? The answer is yes, they do. And I'm quoting an article in Drug Rehab. In 2016, Pfizer, the maker of Embeda, which is a morphine and naloxone combination, agreed to cooperate with Chicago by adhering to a code of conduct for marketing opioids. Industry insiders believe the company agreed to the terms to avoid being involved in litigation with the city of Chicago. What message are we sending to other industries by joining an ill-conceived lawsuit? You have in front of you, and I made sure it was, you have in front of you a bar chart from USA Today dated 12 December 2018. The article is, "Fentanyl, now America's deadliest drug, federal health officials say." If you notice, the top painkillers are illegal substances. Number 1 is fentanyl, number 2 is heroin, number 3 is cocaine, number 4 is methamphetamine. If you sue the legal pharmaceutical industry totally out of business, you still will have an opioid crisis. With illicit drugs, fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine are flooding across our southern border. If anything, this board should pass a resolution for a border wall. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yes. This is a quote from the State of the County Health Report 2017, and it's page 99 of our agenda. It states, following state and national trends, there was also an increase in the number of opioid overdoses in the county in 2017. While there was a downward trend in deaths from prescription opiates alone, overdoses involving heroin, fentanyl, or fentanyl analog quadrupled from 2016 to 2017. In 2016, there were a total of 37 opioid overdoses. 12 of those were due to heroin. In 2017, the total number of opioid overdoses increased to 59, with 48 of those overdoses attributed to heroin. We are absolutely dealing with an opioid epidemic, not just locally, but on a national level as well. According to a report done by the CDC in 2018, there's been a 45% increase in the number of deaths, specifically with synthetic opioids, such as fentanyl, just from 2016 to 2017. In 2017, the STOP Act was put into place, a law limiting the amount of days a doctor can prescribe opioids.
actions have been put into place targeting prescribed opioid abuse. Although it hasn't eradicated the problem, we have seen a decrease in prescription opioid deaths. However, illegal drugs laced with opioids are rampant. Joining a lawsuit aimed at pharmaceutical companies does not address the real problem. I would also argue it does nothing for those currently suffering from addiction. If the real target is to attack this drug addiction, we have to start at the root of the problem. There should be a stronger focus on prevention and a more intense treatment process, longer than just 30 days. In May, I attended the Opioid Community Forum here in Lee County and had the opportunity to hear from our public health department, experienced treatment professionals, former addicts, and families who lost their loved ones due to this tragic addiction. The overwhelming message from all outlets were the importance of education, prevention, and treatment. Engaging in a class action lawsuit will not achieve any of those goals and creates unnecessary expense and possible exposure for the citizens of Lee County. We are faced with an extremely dangerous and challenging epidemic, but we have to charge at it harder and stronger than just from joining a class action lawsuit. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mr. Atwater, that's you, correct?
Yes, yes.
Right.
Mhm.
I hope you get us a lot of money so we can have education, treatment, and those things. I think that would benefit.
Do you want him to?
Yeah, come and
Well, that's what it's aimed at. The damages is aimed at treatment, education, and law enforcement. So that is one of the things that will be put forth in our damages model. And it's not a class action lawsuit. This is your own lawsuit. You don't have someone else telling you how much money you get. You determine whether you want to accept a settlement or whether you want to proceed to trial. A little background. The way the lawsuits got started against the manufacturers, because originally when opioids were first manufactured, they sent out teams to persuade doctors that these things were not addictive, that there's very little danger of being addicted to opioid. And it's simply not true. They knew that and did it anyway. The distributors we're also seeking recovery from violated the Controlled Substances Act. They're supposed to make reports to the DEA for any suspicious shipments. They had shipments going to towns where there would be hundreds of prescriptions for every man, woman, and child for opioids in those things. So they have clearly created a public nuisance. It is switching over somewhat to, you're seeing more heroin and other drugs because, thank goodness, we're finally waking up and trying to stop people from getting prescriptions to opioids that they don't necessarily need. The people that need it have to go through the safeguards and they will get it. But it's harder to get opioids, legally prescribed opioids. They're more expensive, so they're switching to heroin, fentanyl, anything they can get because they become addicted to the prescribed opioids to start with. I don't know whether any of you saw 60 Minutes last night, but there was a brand new report on it, and that's the same lawsuit that will be involved in. One of our group was there at that meeting that you saw that the former Attorney General of Mississippi was heading down there. And we think this is a huge problem, not just for Lee County, but for everywhere. And that funds that you get, you can use for that treatment. You can use for that education. You can use for your law enforcement. And it's something that these people knew they were doing wrong and continue to do it. And how are you going to stop them from doing it otherwise? Thank you.
Thank you.
What was Sand Hill's position on this? Do you recall?
Of the lawsuit?
Sand Hills Mental
Yeah,
Health.
Victoria was very much in favor of it.
I thought as much. What do you propose as an alternative?
Sand Hills Mental Health.
Yes, yes.
I'm trying to get an answer over here.
Sand Hills.
Yeah, Sand Hills Mental Health. What do you propose as an alternative to what we're being offered? Either one of you.
Well, first off, you're trying to make the connection that the pharmaceutical companies are responsible for the problem.
I'm not trying to
And
make
that's not the
anything.
chance.
This is what the lawsuit claims. So that's what do you offer as an alternative?
Continue with enforcement, secure the border, get some more information to.
You just said this morning that building a wall wouldn't do anything in terms of stopping the problem. You said $300 million would give the government the opportunity to examine everything every vehicle that comes through. $300 million. That's a long way from $5 billion. Did you want to say something, Commissioner Dodson?
Well, I agree with Ben. I believe that we can use this money to continue the fight on the opioid crisis. I don't think it's going anywhere. But I think that's the whole idea of this, is what we intended when this was proposed, to use the money to fight this. This is never going to be a war we're ever going to win, the war on drugs, but we continue to combat it the best we can, and of course funds help with that.
Absolutely.
But in the meantime, we're going to destroy an industry or penalize an industry.
I don't even pay that any attention to what you're saying. That doesn't make any sense at all. We sued the tobacco companies. They didn't go away. They found a new resource.
How long could this process take?
Oh, it could take years.
Years.
Yeah, Ben, do you want to?
The discovery is going on right now and the case has been filed. Of course, yours has not been filed yet. We anticipate probably the first trials will be done in Ohio toward the end of 2019. To be honest with you, hopefully after those first few trials, some of these people will come to the table and maybe resolve the situation. But that's the beauty of this kind of thing as compared to class action that you were talking about earlier. There's your decision as to whether, if you want to settle this thing or not, or whether you want to go to trial or not. Nobody decides that but your governing board here, depending on what they offer, if they do.
Thank you. I'm glad you could be here tonight, Mr. Atwell. I appreciate your personal sacrifice in doing that.
Sure.
Madam Chair, I call the question, move to approve.
Okay, I just have one thing to say. It's not my parting thoughts. I don't know if any of the other members of this board have had friends or family members that have been victims of this opioid crisis. But Commissioner Smith, I do take great offense at you alluding to the fact that it's only, illegal drug users that are victims of this. Because I know personally that's not true. And there are pharmaceutical companies and distributors that have victimized citizens in this county that I know personally. And I've talked to doctors, and I've talked to physician's assistants, I've talked to EMS folks, I've talked to our sheriff's department members that have answered these calls, and that you can find information, you can find facts and figures to back up anything, but I know what I've seen in my own personal life, and this is a serious problem, and we're asking for the pharmaceutical companies and the distributors to be held accountable for something that was an egregious action on the citizens of this country. They just totally went out and sold these painkillers as harmless to doctors and other medical providers for profit, pure and simple. And they need to help counties and municipalities recoup the cost and continue to provide us money to help these people so that they don't have to have 7 Narcan doses, which I think if he needs 10 and it saves his life, that's okay with me. Okay, the vote's been called for. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, new business.
Y'all have any other questions of me? If not,
No,
I'll
sir.
excuse
No,
myself.
go get some rest. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas. Take care.
Thank you, y'all.
Okay, new business on page 104. The approval of the drone policy. Thank you. No, I was just telling our deputies, thank you. Take care, be safe.
Madam Chair and Board, before you have the recommended drone policy for Lee County, and I guess we can start off by answering questions. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have on
I'm
this.
just going to throw this out here real quick. I'm just reading this off of the policy, and I think this may answer some of your questions, right? So it says here, deployment for what reasons? At this point in time, you have in here lost persons, structural fire, outside fire, hazardous materials, special rescue, training, demonstration, and hazardous mitigation. So outside that, you're not using the drones.
No, sir.
So I think there was some concern about eavesdropping into people's properties. I think that's maybe where you're coming from, and I agree with you on that. At this point in time, that's not in our policy.
That is not allowable
That's not allowable.
by FAA 107 or NCDOT's rules and regulations for the use of drones, or UASs is what they go by. Just like a quick once over with them. First of all, you're not allowed to let them get out of line of sight. So that takes away the surveillance part of it, if you want to say. The more people that you have to worry about, the people that are using that are not licensed, that are not following the rules, because, I mean, people flying around. I know the sheriff's department's had calls about one that just mysteriously showed up at someone's house. And, there was a family out there, and, because the sheriff called me, it's like, what do we do about this? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I know what a homeowner could do to it. They could shoot it down. I'm not recommending that by any means. But, you've got a family out there on
Sure.
a farm off of Buckhorn
Yes.
Road.
Yes.
And it showed up between the house and the shop. It
Yep.
flew down, it flew around, and then it was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Another good example, when Governor Cooper was here, we were looking at tobacco fields on Buckhorn Road. One showed up. We looked at I think it was Fox. It was down there. One of the news channels was there, and I was like, "Is that y'all's?" Never seen it before. It just showed up. And so one of the things we've tried to do with this, and all the other counties are doing as well, is we went through the class. So you say, okay, well, I'll sit through a 40-hour class. Does that make you an efficient operator? Absolutely not. That is the groundwork by which we operate. That is the safety measures by which we operate, and it starts establishing those rules. Then you've got to go sit through basically a private pilot ground class. You do everything with the exception of planning a cross-country mission for that, and you have to pass that test. So with those regulations, it clearly defines what you can do and what you cannot do. One of the biggest ones is getting out of line of sight. You must maintain line of sight. They do not allow you to go and peep on anyone. Now, can somebody buy one of those and do it? Absolutely. Somebody could go to Wilkinson and buy a Corvette and run 200 miles an hour on the road. Those are rules, those are laws. And one of the good things about, I would tend to think, and I've talked with Mr. Crumpton about this, we're self-policing each other. So when the sheriff's department's using them, we're going to be watching too. And when we're using them, they're going to be watching those. We've got a good teamwork thing going there. If somebody goes beyond what they're allowed by law, you report them, their license are gone. The FAA and NCDOT takes that very seriously. The last thing we want to do is invade someone's privacy with it. So let's, I'll be glad to answer any your questions about the rules and regulations, but I would like to throw this out for you. They have been used, more counties had 3 people, 2 of them were kids, that were found in the last 12 months using a UAS. So think about going out in the dark, how hard it is to find somebody that has walked off or wandered off from the residence. They found one that was kind of hung up in the woods. I mean, they got down in the woods and couldn't get out. They could see them using the UAS, sent the deputies down there, and they were retrieved. They had a teenager reported missing. They found her. She was hiding. She was about 200 yards from her house, and she had got into some bushes and was hiding. She didn't want to be found. And they were able to recover, or actually not recover, but able to get her back out from the woods. The other thing that's kind of interesting, and so I know Mr. Crumpton will remember this because he loves helicopters, don't you? So when we had the tornadoes of 2011, we placed a phone call to our state EM, said, look, we need to be able to get up in the sky and see how much damage we have. And they had us a helicopter down here probably within an hour. And so we did an overflight that night. And so we lined another one up, and I think Linda Shook and John went on a trip together. And I think his fingerprints are still in the A-post on it. But the thing is, think about the expense of putting a helicopter in the air to be able to do an aerial survey versus putting up a piece of equipment with no human on it, no human interface other than the pilot in command, and being able to get those pictures and be able to bring that information back. So, that's one of the many things you can do with it. Large structure fires, we go back over the history. When you have something really large, we have to call an aerial platform to come out. We need to get a view over top of the building. Think about that, a $1.3 million truck that you have to set up in somebody's driveway or their yard to be able to get aerial view, or you walk to the back of your vehicle, you do your safety check, you shoot it up, you're taking pictures, and it's back and it's in a box in 20 minutes. And so, you're reducing risk factor, you're reducing the use of this equipment, and it's a win-win for all parties involved. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Shane, how many guys in your department have been through the class?
Everybody but one, and he takes his test tomorrow.
How
And
about
we're all
sheriffs?
certified 107, the sheriff's got 2 or 3.
Three.
Yeah.
Three.
Will the manager have a list of all the people that are certified and
Absolutely,
licensed?
yes, sir.
Right,
We have to provide that list to our insurance carrier.
all right.
And
And
yes,
insurance, my understanding is, we're not covered by insurance unless they go through the training.
that's correct.
You have to be a 107, you either have to be an FAA 107 licensed pilot, or you have to have a COA, which is a certificate of authorization. I like the 107 requirements because it puts responsibility back on that individual to make sure they're following the rules and the law.
Move to approve.
Okay, any more discussion or questions?
Just a point,
Sure.
on page 120, there, UAS shall not be weaponized as part of the Lee County Sheriff's Office manual. That's the last bullet there.
And that is also against the FAA 107 and NCDOT's requirements. So,
All right, we've got a motion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank
Thank you very
you
much.
so much. Be safe.
Thanks, Shane.
Thank you. All right, item B, under new business, consideration of offer to purchase property located at 1401 Boykin Avenue. Ms. Parrish.
If you want to look up, this is the subject property. The person who's put in the offer lives right here, right beside this parcel right here. So I just gonna pull that up. Perspective. Mr. Gomez, like I said, he lives right beside the subject parcel, and he, on page 122 of the agenda, you'll see that he purchased the 1403 in January of 2008, but his driveway and water meter actually located on the lot right beside it. It wasn't part of the transfer when he bought the house. So anyway, so he has contacted the city and county and asked to, he wants to put in a bid on this property. You'll see that what's owed on it is $3,313.96, which was for the taxes and attorney fees for the foreclosure. The current tax value is $1,800. He did come and submit the advertising costs and then the 5% deposit. Just for your reference, back in 2017, 2 individuals had contacted the county and the city during the foreclosure sale and asked to assign its bid. But at that time, due to the consistency of not assigning bid, at that time, the board nor the city agreed to do that. So I just wanted you to know that that's related to this parcel. So if you wish to accept the offer of $800 from Mr. Gomez, and we can advertise it in the Herald, and we'll do it through the sealed bid process, and then bring the final bid back to the board.
So moved.
Okay.
The man's already taking care of the land, my
He
God.
is, yeah.
Been doing it 10 years. I ought to give it to him.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Yes. Okay. Item C, request from Mark Laskowski to grant a sewer easement across Lee County Parks and Recreation property along Tramway Road for a proposed subdivision on Fire Tower Road repair.
Oh, I guess he's taking it away.
There you go.
Mr. Laskowski, right? Yeah, Mr. Laskowski is here. I probably won't do a great job explaining this, but he is here to answer any questions. But we were contacted by him, and you'll see on page 135 of your agenda, he's wanting to put in a, I guess it's a subdivision off of Fire Tower Road, if he receives all this rezoning from the city. But in order to do so, on that map, you'll see that he is going to be requesting a sewer line easement from our parcel on Parks and Recs parcel. Jennifer and I, John Payne, and then Chris McNeil, because this is near the school, but this is actually Lee County property because it's the park. What's the name of that park?
Tramway Road Park.
Okay, Tramway Park. So it is our parcel, but the schools didn't see any serious issue with us doing this and all. So we're just here before you, and if you so wish to grant the easement, then we'll have to do some paperwork and then authorize the chair to sign it. But Mr. Laskowski is here if you want to ask any questions.
Okay.
His,
I'll turn it
his
over.
zoning request with the city is contingent on this, because this is the only way to get sewer to this site,
Right.
so that he can develop residentially.
Okay.
Can you give me some idea of where your subdivision is going to be located
Come on up. Come on up, Mark.
on this map?
Good evening.
Good evening, board. I'm Mark Laskowski. I'm the developer of, to answer your question, Robert, the Fire Tower Road, obviously there's a stoplight there. If
Yeah.
you're coming from actually US 1 heading in toward Kendall and you're at the stoplight, if you'll take a left onto Fire Tower Road,
Right.
it's approximately right there at the top of the page. You have the corner lot there that's empty. You have the single
Right.
family house. It's that property line right there is 28 acres. behind
Okay,
it.
yeah, well, the clearing is taking place?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the closest sewer is there at the behind the baseball field. There's a manhole that was put there, I think, for access for the Parks and Rec office. They tied into that manhole. The other sewer is all the way past Dreamland.
Right.
That's as close, so it's not economically feasible to go that far. So the only way to do that is to extend gravity sewer to Highway 78 Tramway Road, and then for me to tie into it at that point.
Madam Chair, I move we approve.
Okay. Any more discussion or questions? Is it about 70 lots, Mark?
87.
87, okay, I knew it was, okay.
Can you
Yes.
just so we
You want me to go
are
ahead?
authorized later, we
I got it.
okay,
One
sorry.
thing I would like to add, because
Because
I feel this is important, any costs associated with this, survey fees, recording fees, I'll bear that burden. So there won't be any cost to the county whatsoever. I'll work with John and in terms of the property, in terms of making sure that anything that's disturbed is ceded back and left to his satisfaction. Just to be a good neighbor and make sure everything's done correctly.
Well, you're starting out right.
Sounds like a plan.
So this shouldn't cost the county, this shouldn't cost you guys anything. I'll make sure that I take care of all the costs.
Okay.
Okay,
Madam
I
Clerk,
move
you get that?
I move that we grant the easement for the installation and maintenance of a sewer transmission line to Mr. Laskowski for his development and authorize staff to prepare any necessary documents to effectuate the transfer and authorize the chair to sign the easement once finalized.
Okay. Kind of have a motion A and B.
That's fine.
Okay,
I'm good.
okay, all right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate that. Just keep growing. It's good. Okay, new business, item D, nomination of voting delegate for the 2019 NCACC Legislative Goals Conference. Typically, we have a voting delegate and an alternate. I'm trying to think, who is attending the Legislative Goals Conference, other than myself?
Tim?
Her. Yeah,
He did.
Wait, in Raleigh?
yeah, the one in
I'll be
Raleigh.
going.
You're
I'll
going
be
to?
going, yeah.
Okay. Well, typically, the chair is the voting delegate and the vice chair is the alternate in case the chair can't go or whatever. I mean, but I'm up for whatever you guys want me to do. I've got to be there 3 days, so.
Well, we'll keep it like it's been. I offer that motion to be the chair, the voting delegate, and the vice chair to be the alternate.
Okay, well, I'm glad y'all are going. I've been by myself for a while, so it's good. You went, I think, year before last?
The first year
maybe?
I was here, I went, then I went to DC the
Yeah.
first year.
But it's kind of, you get to see how sausage is made, but it's a really good conference. And we get to do a lot for the upcoming long session. Okay, there's a motion made. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, manager's monthly report. We've got the financial report from Ms. Mentor for November. I can't believe.
And we're halfway through December already.
I know. Good evening.
Good evening. On page 139, find the agenda abstract for the monthly financial report for November. Just a reminder that sales tax runs 3 months behind, so don't be alarmed when you see that we're just around 25% there. As far as sales tax collections go, we are just 0.5% ahead of where we were the same time last year. So we're running about neck and neck there. So looking forward to December's collections on that. In reviewing expenditures, our target's 41.67%. But as I've explained to you so far this fiscal year, we've had to add the encumbrance column for expenditures onto the report and show you the percentage used with those included. So if you scan down, you'll see that there are several departments above the 41.67%. I also did a calculation without the encumbrances, and in that case, there are only 3 departments that are above the target, and those are finance, strategic services, and IT. Finance is overdue to pay for the annual audit, and strategic services and IT are overdue to the upfront payment of maintenance agreements and some capital purchases. So I feel like we're in fairly good shape there. On page 143, you will see our sales tax numbers so far. We have received 3 months worth of sales tax. We are just a little bit below 25%, or a quarter of our collections. We are attributing the low numbers in September to the storms that we had. So we expect to hopefully see those pick back up in October. But we will keep you posted if we come across any concerns. We still overall are seeing a growth in those categories. So, and I do apologize to you because apparently I got interrupted in doing the countywide historical analysis, and those percentages are wrong. I just realized. So please overlook that. Those numbers are wrong. I do apologize for that. But overall, we're seeing a growth of only about 2% so far this year because of low numbers this for the month of September.
Okay. All right. The plug is shop local.
Yes, ma'am.
Shop local. Shop local for the next 7 days. Well, yeah, forever. At least the next 7 days for sure.
Any questions?
Any questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right, county manager's report.
Yes, ma'am. I continue to work with Mosley Architects on the courthouse renovations, and I believe I have some plans that may be ready to share with everybody after the first of the year. So I'm still going through those and making sure that we cover everything in that. We have a very limited budget to try to get some extra offices out there, so I'm trying to just make sure we're on track. An interesting report that I got was the State of North Carolina Economic Tier Designation report that's in there. We remain a Tier 2. It was interesting to see some of the movements from counties that went up and down in tiers. It was actually quite shocking for a few. So just being a Tier 1 allows you to get a much higher income tax credit when jobs are involved, when a new industry comes to town or an existing industry expands. So that's probably the biggest item there. Also included is Daymark's Recovery Services Annual Report, and that's got lots of information in it. You can read it at your leisure. All the reports are there. Reminder, our offices are closed next week on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then again on January 1st. Our next Commissioner's regular meeting will be on January 7th at 6 o'clock, and then as typical, we move the Martin Luther King holiday meeting, which is January 21st, to the 22nd, which is a Tuesday. That's my report. Oh, I have one other thing. I did receive, planning staff today did receive a special use permit from Mr. Bobby Branch to construct a C&D landfill out on North Plank Road. That's about all I know about it at this point.
And the EWP,
Pardon?
EWP, the letter, the watershed program.
Yes, we have a, I'm going to be signing a letter in the next couple of days where we're going to apply for a program that would allow some farmers to address some flooding issues going on in creeks and that kind of thing around their farms. So it's 100%. The state is going to be the match to the federal government. The federal government's giving 75%, and then the state's doing the 25% match. So I think Ms. Parrish and Mr. Ryan wanted me to make sure y'all knew I was going to do that and that that was out there.
It's been a real problem for the farmers. Obviously, everybody knows it's been one of the wettest years on record. Some of our farmers in the low-lying areas and near the river really have major issues. Okay.
John, am I mistaken, is tomorrow the hearing for the Little River?
There is a hearing tomorrow morning at 9:30 on Little River, and the Little River folks are making a presentation to the judge tomorrow or arguments to the judge on what they believe should happen going forward. So I doubt the judge will issue an opinion tomorrow. Could, but probably take a couple of days to think about it before he writes it. And then we expect him to tell the Board of Adjustment what they have to do going forward.
This is at 9:30 here.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Commissioners' comments. Commissioner Smith?
Just a reminder, next week is Christmas. Merry Christmas, and if I don't see you before then, we'll see you next year.
Thank you.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, and hope you have a great New Year. Everybody be safe on your travels.
Just Merry Christmas to everyone.
Okay.
Wishing everybody a Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yes, Merry Christmas.
Madam Clerk, just to let you know, I was not asleep on my motion to move to consent. I purposely voted against myself to show how fair I can be. When it comes to voting, give the public the right to speak. That's my Christmas present. Merry Christmas.
That's my Christmas present.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, just a couple of quick things. You'll see in front of you the schedule for board and committee meetings for 2019 and the board appointments. For the most part, you know, those that are currently serving on the board prior to December 3rd, you know, just kind of left you where you were, so to speak, because you're doing a great job. And for our new folks, Commissioner Smith and I have talked a little bit when we first got here this evening. You know, he going to have him return to some of the committees that he has experience with. in the past, and Commissioner Del Plazo, some of the committees that I will say I've started off serving on. It gives you a chance, there are larger boards, and it gives you a chance to meet a lot of folks in the county and in the region, and kind of see lots of different things going on. But in looking at the schedule when you get home, if you have problems or conflicts or whatever, if you'll just contact me and the clerk, and we'll work things out. But I tried to be fair. I know as chair and vice chair, Mr. Dodson and I have to attend a few more meetings than we just because a lot of the groups are chair and vice chair in attendance, or chair and mayor. So you'll just kind of be able to see where we are if you need us. Kind of got our schedule. And again, tried to be fair to everybody and not overload any one or two commissioners. I do want to put a plug into the public that's watching or will watch or listening. We really do need applications for the Board of Equalization and Review. We're getting ready to get into some important times, and definitely need that board fully staffed. We have 6 regular positions available and 2 alternates. So it's a plea for applications. So if you know somebody that would be good at serving on the Board of Equalization and Review, please have them contact the clerk, and we'll make sure we get an application to them. Also, one more quick thing, that the manager, we do have the retreat scheduled for January the 31st and February 1st, and that will be in the Wicker Room. Okay, so I think we've got a lot of good things on the agenda. Ms. Brown and I have been talking a lot, and the manager, clerk, so it'd be a good time for us to spend some time together and talk about things moving forward in the next year. Have a happy Christmas and New Year, and be safe and enjoy your family. We have a lot to be thankful for in Lee County. We've dodged the major damage from the hurricanes and the snowstorms, and you think about the floods and the fires and things, across the country. It's been a very challenging year for a lot of people. So we've been very blessed here, and I'm very thankful. So everybody, have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, safe travels. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you very much.